Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session, Hearing Prep Without the Manual Work. This is part of Chronicle's Advancing Technology in Disability Law series, where we spotlight tools and workflows that are helping disability firms do their legal work with less of the manual grind. So you will get a full replay and summary in your inbox right after this event, so you can just watch and engage as opposed to having to worry about taking notes. We'll also take questions throughout in the Zoom chat. So if anything comes up along the way, all I ask is if you can put 2 hashtags in front of your question, it makes it a little bit easier to track as we are following along throughout the presentation. And also, if you have any questions along the way post, you can feel free to reach out to us in our post follow-ups as well. Today, we're going to walk away from this session learning the following. We're going to learn how LexMed's pre-hearing brief pipeline works, including a rundown through the medical chronology side, what ChartVision is, as well as the pre-hearing brief. We're also going to talk about what ChartVision actually surfaces, so theory of case, listings, RFC, medical opinions, adverse evidence, and hearing prep questions. We're going to explore why citation-linked outputs let the attorney stay in control of their AI-generated work product. And then we're also going to show you how this pipeline fits into the broader Chronicle workflow. And then we'll show you how to, or we'll tell you about how you can actually try this full workflow on a real case if you're already in Chronicle. Before we get started today as well, I want to do a quick introduction to the speakers for today. The first speaker for today is going to be coming in from the Chronicle side, Nikhil, the founder of Chronicle. Chronicle is the platform that's helping disability firms automate ERE monitoring, case tracking, as well as document workflows. We monitor over 177,000 cases and 7.5 million SSA documents across 2,100 more disability professionals. And then Nick is the founder of LexMed. He is building a disability-specific AI for practicing attorneys with over 1,000 hearings of experience himself. What he's done is he's encoded 14 years of being in the trenches on the disability side of things and used that to power the engine behind LexMed and its products. And I'm Will. I'm focused on building education, partnerships, and collaborations that help disability practices adopt better tools and stronger operational standards. With that, as we start exploring this LexMed release, I want to pass it over to Nikhil to share a little bit more about why we've partnered with LexMed on this hearing prep gap and some context here. So Nikhil, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Great to be speaking with you all. I'm super excited about this release today. As some of you who've been around with Chronicle for a few years at this point have known, pre-hearing briefs is something we've always promised and wanted to get out to you folks. We know it's one of the key pieces of the disability workflow, and so we're super excited to be working with Nick today to bring that to the community and give you something that will save you hours of time. The core problem that you all know is the ERE is not organized. You get all of this information out of the SSA, whether it's evidence, it's forms, documents, notices, all of that, and you are on tight timelines where you only have a couple hours to dedicate per case prior to the hearing, and so it's crunch time, and you have to read through thousands and thousands of pages. For a lot of folks, that means they're mainly creating Excel spreadsheets with encounters and timelines and all of their kind of theory of the case, and they take many hours to do that, or they have to hire someone to do that, in which case, they're also bearing additional costs, hurting your bottom line as a practicing representative or attorney. So, this is where pre-hearing briefs is usually where people really get their stuff together, their theory of the case, how they're thinking about it. And so that's what we're trying to solve today, is just cutting down that review time and that thinking time, so that way you can actually do that one double click deeper and think about the case off of a summary rather than having to, do it from scratch. So the complete hearing prep workflow. So the way it really works, right, is everything flows into the ERE from Chronicle. It's your hub of all your statuses, where your cases are being monitored, where your team is already working. And some of you may already be using our medical chronology products from before, but it's very simple. It's just a one click where you're able to actually get that information from Chronicle, transfer it to LexMed. It'll be the latest file. It'll always be up to date because we're checking every day on every case. And that way, LexMed's able to run its AI, use its domain expertise and actually really build out that chronology, ChartVision, and hearing brief with citations back to that file that we sent from Chronicle to LexMed. And you get results right back into Chronicle. So that way you have that central hub where everything is organized. And so we'll be diving this a little bit more. There's 3 products that we're going to be presenting today. It's going to be medical chronologies, ChartVision, and pre-hearing briefs. So Nick will get into this. This is kind of the full pipeline of your hearing prep, where you're getting medical chronology, which is your kind of timeline narrative of the whole medical record with, each exhibit kind of broken out into encounters. Then there's ChartVision that organizes that into a organized record for you to kind of focus on case strategy. And the pre-hearing brief is that ideal simplified draft you can submit to the ALJ. The pricing is $50 for the medical chronologies, $25 for ChartVision, and then $25 for pre-hearing brief. Or, in a way, think about it as the full pipeline is $100.
Awesome. With that, I think it'd be great if Nikhil can kick us off by showing us how this looks in the Chronicle side, and then he can pass it over to Nick to talk about the actual workflow from there.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. Send request. And then share this screen. Alrighty. So this is the Chronicle dashboard. You're probably very familiar with it, where you're able to see all of your cases, all of your documents right in Chronicle. If you're on our Pro plan, this will be updating on a daily basis. So every case will have the latest set of documents when you open it each day. So if I go into Logan here, I'll be able to scroll down. I see my full list of documents in Chronicle, right? I can see everything from the DDEs to the medical records. I'm able to click into these and actually see the information. And these are all critical pieces of data that are needed for the chronology and brief writing process. And so Chronicle keeps us up to date and ready to go for you at any point in time. If you'd like to start the process of requesting a medical chronology, we have the medical chronology tab. You'll just navigate to here. And you'll now notice we have 2 options available to you, the LexMed medical chronologies and the Dodo Detect medical chronologies. Dodo Detect being our prior provider that you can still use if you like their chronologies. But what we're showing you today is the LexMed medical chronologies. You can, request just the medical chronology, as I mentioned, is $50, or you can add on ChartVision and pre-hearing brief for the additional $25 each. You do not have to select these immediately. You can always add them on later. Clicking this button will start the chronology process. We'll send over the packet to LexMed so they can start doing their magic, and you will get notified over email when it's complete. It doesn't take more than 30 minutes on average. Can be sooner, can take a little bit longer. It depends on the size of the file. If you want a brief, just note you do have to have a medical chronology first from LexMed to get the brief, but you can go to the brief tab. We have pre-hearing briefs, and you can request a chronology and a brief, which would be $75. If you already have the chronology, it will only be $25 additional. Let me actually then show you what it looks like for a client where we've completed a chronology. So I'm on Paul here. If I go to the chronology tab, I will have been emailed, and I can now see that these are completed. I can see the date that they were generated on, and then I can view the chronology. So if I click this button, it will open up the chronology. Right after this, we'll have Nick walk through what you're actually getting a little more in depth. But just know you can download as a PDF, a docx. You can also view ChartVision if you've purchased that. The biggest item below is quite large. And as I mentioned, right, I can always add additional things on later, like a brief. So here I have the ability to unlock briefs. Same for the brief tab. I can now unlock it for $25. And if I click this button, it will go start generating that brief, and I'll get emailed once it's complete also. And with everything with Chronicle, these are billed at the end of the month. So you'll get as part of your invoice, the charge for your medical chronologies and your briefs. And with that, I'll hand it off to Nick to actually walk through a little bit of what you're getting with these outputs.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil. Thanks for joining, guys. Like Nikhil was saying, I've practiced in Social Security disability for a little bit over a decade. And a lot of what I've built out is born out of frustrations I experienced as a young attorney on the road when we actually used to go to hearings. And having to handle 300 hearings a year, sometimes 30 hearings in a week or in a month, and not being able to do the due diligence as far as digging into the record, getting the pre-hearing briefs out to the judges, and doing a lot of the work that I wish I could have done, but didn't have. There's not enough time in the day to actually do it. And the work that I was doing wasn't up to par as far as my standards, just because I felt like I had to get something out the door. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to provide products that are really subject matter expert based. And at the time, AI technology wasn't there, but now it is. And then a lot of the products that are on the market really aren't tailored for Social Security disability attorneys. They're really tailored for personal injury attorneys. And as you know, we're not sending demand letters on property damage and injury suffered from a car wreck to an ALJ. We're trying to outline what's important as far as what's severe, as far as their impairments, how it's going to impact their ability to work, and how to establish a treating source opinion is supported and consistent with the ERE. And so what we've done is we've created this pre-hearing pipeline, which hits on medical chronologies, which we all need, which really helps streamline their review of the ERE. And what we do is we pull the most important findings from the DDEs in Section A and pull out the critical findings in Section F from all the medical evidence. What we're doing, and the way we're kind of distinguishing ourselves from other providers, is we're actually pulling out the information that's important for Social Security disability attorneys, because everything that we're building is coming from the perspective of the lens of a practitioner. And so I'll show you a little bit of what we're doing here with the chronologies, and then show you really what we're doing with our other products, which, like for instance, like our ChartVision product, which is what I really think provides value to the case. So our medical chronology.
Sorry, Nick, to interrupt. You're sharing your other screen right now.
So. Oh, I apologize. Let me pull this up real quick. Thought I had it. There we go. Got it up now.
Yeah, it looks great now.
Okay. So what we're hitting on initially, we're hitting on what were the findings of the state agency doctors. Ultimately, that kind of acts as a roadmap, even though it's adverse to everything that we want to argue for. It really gives us an idea of what we need to establish as far as the evidence we need to overcome. Because as we all know, if the case is denied, it's oftentimes because the ALJ decided to side with the state agency doctors and use their findings to deny the case. So we always outline that at the beginning, and then we go through and hit on all of the providers and and for each date of service, and outline that in a nice organized chronology. What we're doing, though, like I was saying, is the way we're distinguishing ourselves from other providers is that we're really pulling that information from the lens of a Social Security practitioner. And so ultimately, we're going to use the things that we're pulling from the ERE to really build out our other products, so that it will make the outputs for those products even better and help you be better prepared for the hearing. And so the chronology helps build out our ChartVision product. A lot of people are like, what is this ChartVision? ChartVision has been my passion project for actually connecting the dots to what's in the ERE and why it's important, and what is going to help you best prepare for the case. It's going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, essentially, for how to strategically prepare for your hearing. So it's going to outline all the important claim details, the winning theory for the case, give you the strengths, the vulnerabilities, outline issues that, as far as record development, if there's gaps in the records, if you need to get treating medical provider opinions, it's going to hit on all of that to really give you a streamlined view of what you need to know before the case. And then it's going to run essentially the sequential process, the evaluation process over the medical evidence. So hitting on what are the severe impairments? What are the dates of the onsets of those impairments? What are the relevant listings that need to be reviewed? What are the relevant special SSRs, fibromyalgia, migraine headaches? Hitting on all of these little pieces of the sequential process. So essentially, there's no rock unturned. you know exactly what you need to know. It's like an X-ray of the ERE, so you know exactly what you need to know and be prepared for in the case. And with all of our products, we include citations to the ERE, so you have that validation piece when you're looking at these. And so when you click on this, I'm not going to have the whole PDF because this is a mock-up, but when you click on the citation, it's going to scroll down directly to the ERE, so you have the source document so you can validate the accuracy of those outputs. And so with this case, this is actually, I've redacted everything. This is actually a case that I handled in federal court, where we had a claimant with extensive rheumatologic conditions. And so it's outlining all of these abnormal findings related to all the different issues they're having throughout their joints and outlining all those issues. And then they had, and for instance, in this case, they had some issues with nerve root compression. So it's going to outline issues with the musculoskeletal listings. And it's also going to look at inflammatory arthritis and with the applicable listings at 1409. And even with this case, there was a differential diagnosis with fibromyalgia. So it's also going to look under the relevant SSR. But ultimately, it's hitting on everything that you would see in the sequential process to help develop the record and help you establish a theory for the case.
As you scroll through some of this, Nick, do you mind zooming in maybe 2 more times?
Yeah,
folks.
happy. So like I said, in this case, there was a diagnosis for obesity and he had some migraine headaches. So it's doing the evaluation under SSR 19.2P and the 19.4P, and also hitting on all the relevant listings, even if there's evidence establishing a severe mental impairment, hitting on psychiatric review technique with supporting evidence under the different domains. And these are the listings that I discussed earlier, a little bit zoomed in. But ultimately, the value in this product is we get so bogged down and we're reviewing, you know, sometimes 20, 30, some people up to 50 cases a month. You can zoom through this. You have a good idea how to get through an ERE, but there's so many things that you can miss. We all have biases that we build into our practice and how we review things. And the way I look at this is it's really a safety net to give you everything that you need to know before a case so you're prepared. Also, when you're able to see what weaknesses are in the case, if there's issues on credibility, if you have problems with, if they've been working, or if there's drug use or things like that, it's going to highlight those as red flags. So you're not, surprised at the hearing and the judge asks about it. When you're reviewing, like I said, dozens of cases at a time, you might miss out on these things. So really what this does is acts as a safety net. So you know exactly what you need to know for the hearing. And then ultimately with this product, we are offering a pre-hearing brief that will distill this down into something that you would actually send to the judge. So giving you the background and the theory of the case with all of the citations, and then with our pre-hearing brief, just like our other products, all of those citations are linked to the ERE for your ability to validate the accuracy of the citations. We outline the severe impairments. If there are arguments to be made on a listing or a special SSR, we will put that in the pre-hearing brief, and then we will outline the medical opinions. If there's treating medical opinions that support your client's case, we'll hit on those medical opinions, explain the restrictions and why those are supported, and also outline the RFC that's essentially going to get you to that grid, or if they're under the age of 50, why the evidence establishes that they're less than unskilled and less than sedentary. Again, but the way I looked at this is we're providing a service where a lot of times we don't have an opportunity to get a pre-hearing brief in. I know with my volume, when I had a large volume practice, I wanted to get pre-hearing briefs in all my cases, but I didn't always have the luxury of the time to actually do it. And so we're hoping that we can fill that gap where we're actually allowing you to do the work that you weren't doing before, or at least get you a head start to where you've got a strong foundation to work off, and then you can ultimately craft it based on our findings and put your own strategy and put your own spin on it to help you be a better advocate and fully develop the record the way you really want to, as if you had an endless day, which none of us do, because we've got a million things we're working on. But that's ultimately what we want to provide with our products. And we ultimately want to be able to provide this analysis and these types of products to help with pre-hearing work, in addition to our ALJ audit tool that we also offer on Nikhil's platform, where we audit ALJ decisions and provide pre-drafted appeals counsel briefs. We also offer that on there, which attorneys get a lot of value out of. So that's what we got. Happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. And we know we've got a good number of questions coming in. So before we get to that Q&A section, it'd be great for Nikhil if you can just summarize what you covered earlier in your demo section to recap how folks can access this. And then Nick can also summarize just the 3 products that he just showcased as well. And then we'll share the offer that we have for folks today.
Yeah, for sure. So as a quick reminder, right, any case in Chronicle is eligible to have a LexMed Chronology, ChartVision, and pre-hearing brief generated on, as long as documents are enabled. You'll just navigate to that client, go to the Med Chronology tab, and click Request Med Chronology, optionally adding on ChartVision and the pre-hearing brief. And that will then trigger the pipeline with LexMed. You'll get an email upon completion, so you do not have to keep the page open. You will get emailed. And then the output will be saved back to Chronicle, and you'll be able to go back to that client, click the Med Chronology tab or the Brief tab, and click to view the output PDF or download the Word document of what LexMed has generated.
And then Nick, if you want to run through just each of these respective things that you showed us today.
For the Med Chrons, ChartVision, and pre-hearing brief?
Yeah, exactly. Just summarize what you went over in the PDFs.
Yeah, so ultimately what we're doing is we're providing 3 products for you to help prepare for your hearings. We're providing a chronology that's going to pull out the most important information out of an ERE, the way a Social Security practitioner looks at an ERE, the most important critical data from Section A, the DDEs from the state agency doctors, to all of the relevant dates of service within Section F and Section E, where there is medical evidence in there as well, to give you a nice distilled chronology summary so that you don't have to review 5,000 pages. Instead, you might have 50 to 75 that you can zip through. And we use those findings to help build out our ChartVision product, which is essentially a legal analysis product that gives you the cheat sheet to what you need to know before the case, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then what we do is give you a pre-hearing brief that saves you hours of time, that distills the important findings that you want the judge to know.
Awesome. And with that as well, just to kind of recap what Nick was alluding to at the tail end of that, this is a new side of LexMed's offerings within Chronicle. Last November, we included the ALJ Audit and AC Brief release. Nick, as Nick mentioned, it's really getting at these pockets of, the preparation work, both pre and post, that take a lot of time that you wish you had the time to be able to do, but you might not necessarily have that time. And that's where these services come in handy. Just to recap in terms of the expertise side of things, LexMed, the reason why we've partnered with them is because they are very, very specific to disability workflows. This pulls in from all of the different Blue Book listings, as well as special impairment SSRs, RFC checklists, grid rules, and it's from Nick's encoded experience of having done over 1,000 disability hearings himself and over a decade of experience as a practicing attorney himself. And so folks have been sharing some really strong reviews coming in. They've played around with other AI stuff, but this is some of the most advanced Social Security disability things that they've come across. It puts things in order a lot more quickly for them than spending 4 to 5 hours. I know somebody mentioned in the chat earlier it was taking them 2 to 5 hours, which is exactly what we were estimating as well on our end. And they've mentioned how they loved it because they kind of already had an argument in mind, and then the software helped directionally confirm like where their head was going as well. So one customer's example, Mike Sullivan, his AC remand rate has gone to 23% versus the national average at 15.5%, using Chronicle and LexMed's past products on that side, on the back half of this. And so we're excited on this pre-hearing side with this release. I know we have a lot of questions to get through. So before we get there, though, I want to share that if you are a Chronicle user with us, you can actually try this on a real case. And so what we recommend you do is to run this pre-hearing pipeline for yourself. Follow that process that Nikhil outlined earlier, where you go into the case and then you start kicking off that pipeline. From there, you can run it through the medical chronology, see how ChartVision comes back, and then work through that pre-hearing brief. So you can do this for a full case. The offer expires in 2 weeks from today, so you'll have plenty of time from today to be able to just try this out for yourself. If you are not on Chronicle, you can either check out our website. I'll also put in something in the description of the Zoom chat in case you want to book a demo with us, and we can set you up with a trial to walk you through what this might look like for your practice. So if you are looking to access it, again, for Chronicle users, open up any case, and then you can go to the LexMed tab. If you're new to LexMed and you want to try them directly, go to lexmed.ai. Otherwise, on Chronicle, you can book a demo on the link below. And so this will run that full pipeline. And as a reminder, I know some folks joined us late today. In that case, no worries. Just remember there is a replay and summary coming your way in your inbox later. With that, though, let's start running through these questions. The first one came from Allison, and I know a few other folks. I think Emily also had some similar questions here, which is, how many revisions of the medical chronology or brief are available, if any? And can the pre-hearing brief also function as a post-hearing brief that incorporates the transcripts?
Let me start answering with the first piece and I'll hand it off to Nick, which is the way it's currently built is it will take the current state of the ERE file, so at that moment in time, all those files, and we'll run it purely off of that. And if you would like an additional refresh, it's like starting it from fresh where you're paying another $50 for a brand new meta chronology. So each refresh is an additional set of charges, but that will be changing in the future. And I'll hand it off to Nick to talk about it from there.
Yeah, so currently we're just allowing you to do where you can run it one time. We're currently working on a supplemental feature where I always use the example of, getting 3,000 pages of VA records last minute. Like, what am I going to do with this? So we're going to offer that where we allow you to supplement the medical chronology and supplement your ChartVision reports and your pre-hearing brief. Hoping to have that out by the beginning of June, but it's coming soon.
And that leads to the question of, can we manipulate the chronology and ChartVision entries, for example, organize them by provider?
No, but that is on our roadmap. Currently, you can manipulate them in DocX, but you can't filter them and change and filter them by provider exhibits now, but that is something we plan on updating, and that's on our roadmap. We know that's important for practitioners.
Got it. Leanne had asked, does the chronology look for significant findings within the body of CE reports, or does it just look at the assessment and opinion of limitations page? For example, within the body of a mental CE report, it'll say if the claimant could remember 3 words after a few minutes or less. That can be important, but probably will not be on the last page with diagnostic impressions and opine to limitations.
That is a great question. So that's exactly the kind of thing that we're doing and pulling and focusing on, is looking at a mental CE and actually focusing on the things that a practitioner is wanting to know, as far as how they handled on the different tests and the ultimate determination of how they're impaired. At the end of the report, we're actually pulling out that information and then, excluding the noise. I would say that we're trying to just pull out the things that you really want to know, as far as, well, did this mental psychic eval, is it helpful in supporting my client's claims, or is it harmful? And so we're honestly focusing on that information. We pull that and put that in the chronology.
Micah asked, does the chronology include docs in the E section or only in the F section?
Right now, we're only pulling from the A and F section. Probably in June, we're actively working on pulling out the relevant information from the D and E section. For example, I always want to know in the E section if there's a medical or if there's a headache questionnaire, if there's a seizure diary, seizure questionnaire. I want to know VA ratings. I want to know LTD information. So we're going to be pulling that in and also putting that in the chronology, but it's not in there yet, but it is on the roadmap.
Palacio asked a great question for both Chronicle and LexMed, which is the bulk of his disability practice is around is in mixed languages, so in Spanish and English, and so many different documents, including the scanned records, handwritten notes, psychiatric exams, and evaluations. They can be in a mix of English and Spanish, so accuracy is very important to him, and he's curious about how reliable these medical chronologies are from Spanish translations without necessarily relying only on automatic translation. And also, if the system preserves the exact source references, such as provider names, dates, exhibit page, citations, medications, RFC-related findings, and longitudinal treatment patterns in the Spanish records for disability cases. And this is because the bulk of his respective records are in Spanish.
We've only done testing on on our workflow on English, so I would not say that it would be reliable for records in Spanish. At least currently, we don't have that capability.
All right. Let's see. Tracy asked, I think we already covered this question, but just to reiterate for the record, as new records come in, can the Med Cron and brief be updated? And if so, is there an additional cost to this?
Yeah, like I was saying, we're hoping to get that pushed by, we're actively working on that by June. We've not set pricing exactly yet, but we're thinking probably updating, depending on the size of the records, $25 for updates, but we still haven't decided that definitively yet. We're still working on kind of getting some feedback from customers, what they think would be reasonable, but there's still obviously some compute costs involved if someone dumps 3,000 pages into the record and then we have to rerun it. So we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do that pricing.
Emma asked if we can only get a brief if we first ordered both the medical chronology and ChartVision, or can we just get medical chronology and a brief?
So go ahead, Nikhil.
I was going to say, you always need a medical chronology. That is the foundation of everything. So that is the one you always have to pay for. Once you've requested a medical chronology, you can optionally add on ChartVision or a brief or both. So those two are supplementals that you can add on top of the original chronology.
Awesome. I know this was covered in a slide, but Nick, if you can speak to this directly, what is the SOC 2 policy for you all, and just in general data security structures, and then Nikhil can follow on from Chronicle's side.
So Chronicle is actively SOC 2. We're working towards SOC 2 compliance. Currently, what we do offer is zero retention policies to ensure that you, that attorneys are following their obligations under the professional rules of conduct. As far as Model Rule 1.6, with our zero retention policies, none of the information that you're sending us is going off to any of the big AI providers like Anthropic or OpenAI or Google. The only reason that we would retain that information is just for your benefit. And we're not using any of your clients' data to train any models. But we are actively working towards SOC 2, complete SOC 2 compliance, and should be done soon.
And then just from Chronicle side, we are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. We're actually just finished our 2026 audit. So that is available for folks if they would like it. And in our 2026 audit, we did complete a security questionnaire with LexMed. So they have filled out the essentially equivalent of a SOC 2 security questionnaire. So we know that they are compliant with our standards and so on.
Tracy asked, do practitioners pass along the cost to clients as an advanced expense?
I'll leave that to Nick. Yeah, yes, they do. I haven't had like long discussions about it, but I know that practitioners do because I know it's been a big request, at least on our end, for tracking. So because when they buy multiple products for one client, they want to be able to track that and bill them after the case has been approved.
And then digging into some of these LexMed specific questions, Nick, another question was, how accurate is the medical chronologies? What if it misses something? What have you found in the testing cases there?
The accuracy, I'll just tell you how we built this. We originally built this product where we actually had humans with a team offshore that built our chronologies. We got to the point early this spring where the accuracy of our AI medical chronologies was exceeding that of our humans. I would say that we're capturing probably 95% of the findings. And because we're focusing on the pieces of evidence that Social Security practitioners are wanting, it tends to be fairly accurate because we're focusing on all those abnormal objective findings that you're really wanting to see in the medical record. Look, the medical opinions that you want to know about, the restrictions that are buried in a consultation visit or, visit with their treating doctor. So overall, we ultimately have very high accuracy with our reports.
When comparing ChartVision versus just reading the chronology, why not just read the chronology carefully? What specifically is ChartVision doing differently there?
It really acts as, like I was saying, as kind of a safety net because we all have our own kind of biases in our cases on how we review things, what we like to strategize with. What we're doing is kind of giving you everything that you need to know as far as the theory of the case that you might miss. It really goes back to there's only so many hours in the day. When you've got a full caseload, it's easy to get things mixed up. It's easy to get to miss just one small thing that could possibly help you win your case on some small objective finding that's actually big in the scheme of what's in the listings. Hey, they've got an ejection fraction that's less than 30%. Oh, well, I forgot to check to see if it met one of the cardiovascular listings. It's things like that our system's going to pull up that you might miss just because of human error. And I think that's the real value that we provide is it's not just, okay, here are the facts. It's really, why is it important? And is how is it going to help me win this case on the day of the hearing?
Dan asked, does passing the cost along require this action to be in the fee agreement?
I'll leave that to you in the way that you, what they need. Each state's got their own rules as far as how they build their plans with that. So I'll defer on that.
All right. And for what it's worth, Dan, if you saw Leanne's comment in the chat, she does not charge clients for what they consider in business operations. So I think to Nick's point, it's your mileage may vary in terms of how you run your practice on that side. Sydney asked the question of, does the brief go through the 5-step analysis?
Yes, that's the way we built it. We're hitting on the severe impairments. That's step 2, looking at if there's a relevant listing where all of the different factors are met, we're going to make that argument for you. Even looking at the special SSRs, fibromyalgia, migraine headaches, obesity. The beauty of the ChartVision product, though, is like even if there's one that's missing, one of the elements, like for any of the listings, if you're missing one element, it's going to tip you off to say, hey, you have 4 of these. You might want to get a letter out to your treating provider to see if they can check off that box. So you will have a good argument at the hearing that they meet this rather than medically equal it. We also hit on the medical opinions, any treating provider, or even consultative opinions that might be helpful. We include that in the pre-hearing brief to outline why they support your theory of the case, that they are worthy of being approved on the day of the hearing.
All right. And then Michael just ordered a Med Cron that came back as 237 pages from over 2,400 pages. He's curious if you just can speak to any strategies when it comes to sorting through Med Crons and what's actually important. Is this something that ChartVision and the brief can help?
Yeah, so we're working on, depending on the size of the records, what we've got right now is you're getting about 10 to 15 pages per 100 pages. We're working on slimming that down. Really, the chronology is really kind of a data cleansing process is the way I look at it. It's pulling out all of the important information, and then ChartVision is actually giving you everything you want to know about the case. All of and kind of completely clearing out the noise and just pulling out the important objective findings to make your arguments. We're actively working on trying to slim down our chronologies even more, but we run into this where if we slim it down too much, it's like, hey, Nick, you forgot to get this. And then if we put too much in, we've already slimmed ours in, they're like, they're way too big. I will tell you this, and this is one thing that always frustrated me with working with legal tech companies, and I think this is something that both Nikhil and I both work towards, is this active feedback that we work with on our customers to make our products better every week. You give us feedback, there's a good chance the feedback that you provide, we're going to be updating our systems the next week. We just released this last month, and the product that we have is different than what we had last month. We were getting way more verbose outputs for our chronologies than we do today. Next week, it's going to be even more. So please use our products and know what you see today might not be what you see tomorrow, because the active feedback that you give us, we're actively engaging and putting that and making improvements on us to make you have an awesome product.
Gina asked, could it be slimmed using the 12 months before the AOD as a reference? The length of the...
We do not offer that, but that is certainly something it's a good idea and we should consider.
Awesome. One question around brief quality. So how much editing does the pre-hearing brief typically need from what you've seen?
What I'm seeing is the way I really envision these products is really kind of what I've said is like the 80-20 rule, like where we're giving you the solid foundation to do 80% of the work, and then you do the last 20%. They're going to be things that we are not always going to see, that you as an attorney or representative are going to see, that where you actually put the last, pieces of strategy on it. So whereas I think we were talking about sometimes 3 or 4 hours to get a brief together, we would handle, which I said, this would be 75-25. We handle 3 hours of that work, and you handle the last hour. So I hope that answers the question.
From a handwritten record standpoint, assuming it's in English, does it handle handwritten records or poor quality scans?
Yes. So we use depending on the type of exhibit that's in the ERE, we use different AI models, ones that are focused on vision capabilities, where we know there's a high percentage chance that there's going to be handwriting, and where there's certain types of documentation that always is bad quality. And we use this specific model, for example, for records that are going to be medical source statements. We know those are consistently handwritten notes are consistently used in that to check off boxes and write written notes. We're always going to use our vision model for that, so it can actually capture that information.
When it comes to ERE files that are very large, so maybe over 1,000 pages, does it work with that size? Have you noticed any differences compared to files that aren't that large?
Yeah, so we've run all different kinds of cases, ranging from 500-page EREs to really stress testing it. I think we really pushed ours to running a 15,000 page ERE. And no problems there. We're still, even with that size ERE, we can generally get Chronology, essentially hit all the products in our pre-hearing pipeline and get them back to you in 30 minutes.
Awesome. In terms of pre-hearing versus ALJ audits, curious if you know or have noticed any certain cases that have been found to be better to use either of these products on versus other cases. So on the pre-hearing brief or on the ALJ audit.
Any particular, I think I can't say any particular kind of case. I think it's any case that helps me identify an issue that I might have missed, and that's a lot of them. I think that goes back to really the value add that we're providing. I'll give you some examples. There are things that it's picked up on, and I think I use the cardiovascular listing to explain, like, for instance, you're digging through a chronology or an ERE and you missed echocardiogram or something where you missed the ejection fraction was below 30%, where that would otherwise establish meeting a listing of impairment. Our system's going to pick up on that. In our ALJ audit, we've actually had one where the ALJ's actual medical summary outlined the ejection fraction was under 30%, but the ALJ neglected to actually address that listing at step 3. I think some of those more nuanced listing arguments, and I think another one as far as the ALJ audits, some nuanced findings in step 4, for instance, where the ALJ has determined that the claimant can return to their past work, but also identified it as a composite job and found they could perform that job as generally performed in the national economy, which you can't do. I think with all of these products, what you're going to see is that they're built from the lens, like I said, of a practitioner, but not just an attorney that handled volume work, from an attorney that actually did the last 8 years of my practice focused on federal appeals. So you're going to have this eye that's kind of built into this product to give you some of these nuanced analyses that you might miss.
I know that price is always going to be an important consideration for folks. So curious how you all have evaluated or explained your pricing model, and if the $100 per case is worth it, how you guys got to where you got in terms of pricing.
Yeah, we're looked at the overall market. We understand that we're not selling to personal injury attorneys, so there's only so much we can charge for our products. But what we saw is we looked at the market and saw an opportunity to provide very competitive pricing. We felt like $50 for a Chronology was very reasonable compared to other competitors, and especially with the value add that we're adding to our products for the ChartVision product and the pre-hearing brief, $100 for the whole package, we felt was competitive. And given that there's not many other people on the market providing the value add that I think we're providing with a product that's built by a Social Security disability practitioner, I think you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. And that goes for the ALJ Audit AC Briefing tool too, where we're essentially giving you an analysis from an experienced federal court attorney and giving you the cheat sheet necessary to give you the best chance on appeal with the appeals council.
Awesome. I think we've covered every question in the chat, but if anyone does have any final questions, feel free to drop them in. In the meantime, I'm going to start wrapping up for today. Big thank you to Nikhil and Nick for walking us through this. Today, we covered the full LexMed pre-hearing pipeline, how the medical chronology then organized the record, then turns that over to ChartVision, which turns it into case strategy before creating a pre-hearing brief that helps draft your argument. Key takeaway for you all is that hearing prep should not have to start with hours of manual record organization. And that's the part that LexMed can assist on. So this allows you as the attorney to really direct your time towards the legal judgment side of things that only your attorney or EDPNA can make. So the next step for you, if you are on Chronicle, is to try this out on a pipeline with a real case. The link is in the chat, and to do that by June 4th. If you have never tried Chronicle and you want to try this out for yourself as well, you can book a demo with that link. And then you will get a replay as well as a summary in your inbox later today in case you missed any portion of today. In terms of some heads up announcements as well, next week, we're kicking off our Disability Peers in Practice. So if you're not already in that session, the first one was fully booked. So we made a second one for 2 p.m. Central next Wednesday. I think we have 5 spots left there. So feel free to check out that link, which is the first one in the chat. And then if you can share feedback on these events, it makes it really helpful because that's how we then curate our programming. And we've got a couple other events coming up in the context of a collaboration with Super Insight and Workscape Analytics in a couple weeks as well. And then some things around referral strategies next month. And then Allison has maybe a final question for us before we wrap this up, which is still curious if a post-hearing brief incorporating the transcript can be produced or not.
So we've got a separate product that we just released. We haven't integrated with Nikhil's platform yet, but plan on it. We've got a post-hearing brief that's based on the transcript. But are you wanting to know, like, is this a brief that you would send to the judge? Ours is based on essentially auditing the vocational expert's testimony. So it might be different than what you're wanting it for. But in our product, we audit the vocational expert's testimony to look for inconsistencies in their testimony and then draft a brief outlining issues with their testimony. But we don't have one that incorporates medical evidence arguments.
Cool. No, B doesn't exactly.
All right. And Gina, as a recap on the cost, it's $100 for the full pipeline. And then in terms of each respective part, it's $50 for the Med Cron, $25 for ChartVision, and $25 for the pre-hearing brief. All right. With that, thank you everybody for attending. Hope to see you at one of our upcoming events next week. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day and look out for that replay. Bye all.
Bye, everyone.